Hi guys, Christoph the Polish Geek and welcome to another movie review. And I'm reviewing the movie The Heretic, which was a really fascinating, interesting, intense thriller. I had a really great time with it actually, because this is the movie I certainly was not interested in. I'm not into horror in general, although this isn't a horror in my opinion. This is very much a thriller, even if it's advertised as horror, but that shows how sometimes advertising can totally deceive you, because this movie was advertised as a horror, but in my opinion at least, although there certainly are elements that would very much seem very much in a horror, I very much think this is a thriller, and a really good and intense one at that, because after it came out, actually I've been hearing some good things about it apparently, so I decided to go see it, and I was surprised how much I ended up really enjoying it. The movie is about those two Mormon women, and fun fact, before we get more into the story, I will say, I actually do have several friends in my life who are Mormons. I once had a good friend from Ukraine who was a Mormon. She later moved to Utah. I mean, we haven't spoken in 12 years at this point, but yes, when I was a teenager, I did have a friend who was a Mormon, and she lives in Utah now, where Mormon Center is actually. And I even been to Salt Lake City once, and I even seen the Mormon temple. I was 6 years ago when I lived in the United States. So yes, I do know a little bit about the Mormon faith actually. And I have to say, from what I know about the Mormon faith, it seems like this movie pretty much reflected it well to what Mormons believe. I'm personally Roman Catholic, you probably already know if you've been following me, but it doesn't change the fact that I am in general fascinated by all world religions and all that, and I really like how this movie especially was very much asking pretty interesting theological questions. You can tell that the bad guy, played brilliantly by Hugh Jackman, we'll get to that later, is very much an atheist, and even though as a Catholic, I have to be honest, the questions he's been asking to the two women who came into his house were actually pretty interesting, fascinating, theological questions that truly can make you think actually. I really love that. And again, so as I said, the story is about those two Mormon women who knock at the house of an old man, and of course they are a missionary, so they want to convert him to being a Mormon, and he invites them to his house. At first he lies to them that his wife is in the house, since otherwise they would not enter the house if they didn't know that, if they knew that there is no woman in the house. And then he basically lies to them that his wife is making a blueberry pie, and then he starts asking them questions that very much challenge their faith, and it only gets more and more intense from there. And yes, the first half of the movie, which is when he's asking them all those tough questions, all this is simply brilliant. The first half of the movie is simply brilliant, phenomenal. And then the second half, where it gets a little bit more where it goes a little bit more into a horror. I wouldn't say it's a horror because, spoiler alert, there's nothing supernatural there. There are things that certainly look supernatural at first, only to turn out that there is a very logical explanation for all that, and the guy turns out to be a huge spoiler alert, serial killer. So yes, even though in the second half at least it certainly has elements that would very much make a movie look like a horror, but it's very much a thriller, and I love it for that. The two main leads, the two main characters are surprisingly likable and well-written characters. They're not like caricatures of missionaries, but as I said, it's surprisingly well-written characters that you very much care about, and the performances are brilliant, especially by Hugh Jackman as the main villain. Hugh Jackman does a performance of his lifetime here, but I already said before, although the whole movie was great and I really enjoyed it, I have to say the first half was actually much better, because the first half is when the two women, as I said, are trapped in his house and have this battle of wits with him, and he's basically might have sinister motives for them. I mean, he obviously does. We do learn later for certain that he does, but Yep, the first half of the movie, when the two women have like this battle of wits with this old man, and he asks them basically some really interesting, challenging theological questions. Even as myself, as a Catholic, I do sometimes ask those questions. I'm not going to hide, like that's simply brilliant. And then the second half is when when they step into the basement and gets more into a horror territory. That's where I do think the movie steps down a little bit. I mean, it's still very good. It's still very good and still pretty intense and enjoyable overall. It's just that I think the first half is a little better. But overall, I think that The Heretic was an excellent, intense thriller that you totally need to see. And it's certainly way scarier and more intense than any supernatural horror movie. At least any modern supernatural horror movie. Unless it's directed by Robert Eggers. But come on, that guy is just excellent. You can't top that guy in horror, at least not in modern times. But yes, I say that The Heretic is a really excellent thriller, and what also makes it in some ways scary and creepy is that Mr. Reed, I believe that guy was called, is that he's actually way scarier than most horror villains, because if you really think about it, he is very much the type of person that you could actually meet in real life, which actually makes him so much more creepy and scary actually, because if you think about it, yep, I very much think that there are people like him in real life. But overall, I very much recommend The Heretic. If you want a really smart movie with some really interesting, challenging questions or some good religious thriller, then I think The Heretic is very much for you. Like, I didn't expect to enjoy the movie. Like, I probably wasn't even going to see this movie, only to hear some really good things, and then I was surprised how much I ended up really enjoying the movie, especially the first half. Like, the second half still good, but the first half is brilliant. And so, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for checking out this review of The Heretic, and press the like button. Please subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you soon in another movie review. Talk to you then. Bye!